So today we're going to break down the Tulsa sound and why the most influential musicians in history had to unlearn everything they knew to master it. So we're going to look at some of the best songs, and we're going to look at some of the licks and techniques. But first of all, the story of the man who made famous people stop showing off. So it's 1970, and Eric Clapton is the guitar god. Right? He's coming off Cream. He's doing these insane solos. So this is him playing The Blind Faith, 1970. Okay, so people love it, and it is fantastic, but something's missing, right? He's technically brilliant, but he's also kind of lost. He's creatively exhausted, and he's drinking himself to death. Then he hears JJ Cale, and JJ Cale is the opposite of Clapton. He's mild-mannered, quiet, and he plays behind the beat. His whole approach is less is more. And then, so Clapton hears this song, After Midnight. Such a cool little riff. So cool hearing those little riffs he's playing and everything. And he's playing it there in the key of G. And it's interesting with JJ Cale because when you listen to his stuff, he'll never play the same thing twice. All the arrangements are different. He'll change keys on songs. He'll change the feel and the timing. He's just such a creative person. But the original song was in the key of D, and it was just D, F, and G, basically. It just kind of goes around those chords. So that whole song is just D, F, and G, right? It just cycles around that chord progression. After midnight, we're gonna let it all hang out. So it's a nice simple song, right? And it's got this great kind of swing, laid back. It's got this great kind of laid back, bouncy groove to it, right? Which is really fantastic. And it's a great song to solo over. And that chord progression, JJ would use a lot of power chords, right? And a power chord is the most simple form of chord, but it's also a very complex type of chord in a way because there's ambiguity to a power chord, right? When you play a power chord like that, is it D major or is it D minor, right? So that enables you to be very creative with your melodies. You can play minor scales, you can play major scales, you can play pentatonics, you can play modes, and he would often do that, play these like really interesting melodies over these power chords. And in the song, he's adding all these cool textures and layers. It's not volume, it's not speed, it's just pure vibe. That song's a real masterclass. So Clapton records that song in 1970 and it becomes a massive hit. It's Clapton's version of it. And, you know, at that point, Clapton's realizing the groove is way more important than the flex. And it opens up a whole new world for him. But his version becomes kind of a standard part of Eric Clapton's repertoire, and he adds that kind of signature Clapton. He adds that signature Clapton sound to it, which is really, really fantastic. So the Tulsa sound has three core principles in it when you kind of examine it, right? There's the laid back groove, you know, it's the idea of like kind of playing behind the beat, making it sound effortless and subtle. And even though when you see him play, it sounds so effortless, it actually requires immense control. And then secondly, there's less is more, right? Stop filling every space, stop showing off with all the notes, let the music breathe. You know, the rhythm is sacred, just follow the groove, right? Then there's paying homage to the roots, right? Within the Tulsa sound, there's Delta blues, there's jazz, there's American roots music, there's rock and roll, You know, it's all in there. All the classic parts of American music are integral to JJ Cale's sound. All right, so another great song where JJ really shows his innovation is Crazy Mama. And check out this little boogie pattern that he's using. So the song's just doing this little toggle boogie. Just back and forth, like almost like a little Eddie Cochran lick. Crazy mama, where you been so long? You know, so it's a really simple song. It's just got that little hypnotic repeating riff like that. And then instead of going to the usual kind of turnaround in a blues, it goes to this. Just that little kind of Mixolydian progression. And then he's playing these awesome slide licks on it. And it's got that kind of vocal sound to the slide playing, almost like, or you know, it's just before like Steve Miller and all that kind of stuff. So JJ was very innovative, coming up with all these cool things. And you know, the sound here was kind of like a wah wah and a slide. So, you know, he's making it sound like a vocal, partly by using the wah wah, but. But just having that real light touch where you're using kind of these like micro tonal adjustments and then kind of playing behind the beat, it just makes it really sound like a vocal. And he's playing in standard tuning there. It's funny because hilarious how he talks about how he adjusts his action on his guitar for playing slide and stuff. Shows what a creative mind he had.
On guitars, how close the strings are to the neck is with this deal here, and I have money in there. There's a nickel and a dime in there, right? If you want the action higher, you put a nickel and penny sticker than a dime, right?
Now you're subject to...
Genius. Another huge part of the Tulsa sound is the actual function of the rhythm guitar. A lot of the lead guitar is almost like it's played with a lot of subtlety, almost like it's played in this really understated way, but the rhythm is very dominant and it's very important to the sound. And, you know, for example, if you hear like on Call Me the Breeze here, it's kind of like a bluesy song, but the rhythm is an essential part of the song, right? He's got this way of kind of slapping the strings and keeping that really consistent beat going there. It's just a killer groove. So he would play his rhythms like this. And it just really sounded good on the records. Even though it's kind of played softly, it just has this really huge, actually a huge sound. And that kind of finesse of the rhythm on a lot of his songs, where it was all about the groove and the feel, you know, it was a massive influence on Clapton, Knopfler, you know, I mean, you can hear it on, you know, like Lay Down Sally. It's the same type of thing. It's a bit more intricate, but that kind of, that little groove there. You know, or when you hear Knopfler's playing, that's a huge part of Dire Straits' sound, is that kind of like intricate rhythm play. So JJ was really the archetypal guy for the Tulsa sound, but there was a lot of other players involved as well, you know, who were co-collaborators. Leon Russell was a huge influence, and, you know, he actually had a studio in LA where he and Cale made a lot of great records. And, you know, Leon Russell went on to be such a big influence on people like Elton John. So these guys were the exponents of this kind of philosophy and this Tulsa sound. And then one of the songs that's most associated with the sound, which wasn't even actually written by someone from Tulsa, was Tulsa Time, which was performed by Don Williams. It was actually written by his guitar player, Danny Flowers, but it's a fantastic song. And Clapton went on to record this song, and it became a big hit. And again, it became a staple of his sound. It's a fun song to play. It's just basically two chords.